You know, some cities are built, and they just are. But not Paris. Paris is different. Kings build it up, revolutionaries tear it all down. Then artists and visionaries come along and remake it over and over again. This is that story.
The story of a city that isn't just built of stone, it's a city forged in the fire of ambition, chaos, and this incredible, constant drive for reinvention.
Yeah, and this quote right here, it's really the perfect way to look at its entire history. It's a story of almost unbelievable beauty that is somehow born from incredible violence.
Exactly. It's about a light that, against all odds, always seems to find its way out of the fury.
So where do we even begin? Well, it doesn't start with grand boulevards or monuments. Not at all. It starts with a simple bunch of huts on an island in a river. Before Paris was Paris, it was Lutetia, a tiny settlement of fishermen and boatmen, just trying to make a living.
Right, and from the very beginning, its identity was shaped by one wave of conquest after another. So way back around 259 BC, a Celtic tribe called the Parisi settles on that island in the Seine, the Ile de la Cité. But then, a couple of centuries later, guess who shows up? Julius Caesar and his legions. They conquer the settlement, of course, and rebuild it into a proper Roman town named Lutetia. But as the Roman Empire starts to fall apart, the people living there pull back to that same defensible island. And it's not until 508 AD that a Frankish king, Clovis I, marches in, declares it his capital, and gives it the name we all know today, Paris.
But just having a name didn't mean it was safe. Survival was never a guarantee.
Oh, not even close. In the 5th century, Attila the Hun is on his way, and legend says this young woman, who would later become Saint Genevieve, convinced all the terrified citizens to stay and pray instead of run. And you know what? Attila's army turned away. But then came the Vikings, sailing right up the Seine, not to settle, but just to burn and plunder.
And those brutal sieges taught the Parisians a lesson they'd never forget. If you want to survive, you have to build bigger, stronger walls. And it's those walls that become the foundation for a city that was about to reach for the heavens. That's right. Welcome to medieval Paris, an era where the city goes from a walled fortress to a true European powerhouse.
And the transformation during this time is just staggering. In 1163, they start building Notre-Dame Cathedral, a project that would take almost 200 years to finish.
And at the very same time, the University of Paris turns the city into an intellectual capital, which is how we get the famous Latin Quarter. Oh, and King Philip II gives the whole city a massive upgrade, paving the gross, muddy streets and building the original Louvre. And get this, it wasn't a museum yet, it was a giant fortress.
So by 1300, Paris is basically a megacity for its time. We're talking a population of 200,000 people.
But with that incredible growth came unimaginable horror. The 14th century brings the 100 Years' War, it brings famine, but nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared Paris for the Black Death in 1348. The plague just ripped through the overcrowded city, killing up to half of everyone living there. The bodies were literally piling up in the streets. It was a complete apocalypse.
And it's out of this century of total darkness and English occupation that this incredible figure emerges. Joan of Arc, a 17-year-old peasant girl who says she hears the voices of saints. Now, she didn't actually liberate Paris herself. In fact, her attempt failed. But her campaign, it was like a lightning bolt for the French forces. She gave them hope. She completely flipped the momentum of the war, and that's what eventually led to the English being kicked out of the city for good.
So the city recovers, and by the 18th century, it's the undisputed capital of European culture. This is the age of enlightenment, an era of brilliant and, as it turns out, very dangerous ideas that were about to set the entire country on fire.
And you know, this era perfectly captures the city's wild contradictions. On the surface, you got these fancy salons where philosophers are debating reason and human rights, but right underneath their feet, the city is literally rotting. The cemeteries are so full that they're a public health nightmare. It gets so bad they're forced to dig up the skeletal remains of 6 million people and move them into old mining tunnels, which is how we get the catacombs we know today.
So while the rich were talking philosophy, the people of Paris were starving. And on July 14th, 1789, they just had enough. A mob stormed the Bastille, this old royal fortress that stood as a symbol of tyranny. That was the spark that lit the flame of the French Revolution. And what happens next is just a rapid, terrifying spiral. In January 1793, King Louis XVI is executed by guillotine in a public square with thousands of people watching.
9 months after that, his wife Marie Antoinette meets the exact same fate.
And pretty soon, all that idealism of the revolution just soured into paranoia. The reign of terror began, and tens of thousands were sent to the guillotine. Nobles, priests, and in the end, the revolutionaries themselves, including their leader, Robespierre. The city was just drowning in its own blood. And out of all this chaos, one man rises up to impose order: Napoleon Bonaparte. He seizes power, and he sets out to make Paris the capital of a brand new Roman-style empire, a city that would be worthy of his massive ambition.
Decades later, it's actually his nephew, Napoleon III, who oversees the city's most radical reinvention yet. He hires this guy, Baron Haussmann, who basically demolishes medieval Paris. He just rips up all the narrow, winding streets and replaces them with the wide, grand boulevards, the parks, and those iconic apartment buildings that we think of when we picture Paris today.
Yeah, but Haussmann's grand project was so much more than a facelift. It was a masterclass in social engineering. I mean, think about it. Those wide boulevards weren't just for pretty views. They were way too wide for revolutionaries to build barricades, and they were perfect for troops to march down and control the city's famously rebellious population. And that control was definitely going to be tested. In 1871, after France suffered a humiliating defeat in the Franco-Prussian War, the workers of Paris rose up and formed something called the Paris Commune. It was this radical, super idealistic government that lasted for only 2 months before the French army came in and brutally crushed it. It became known as the Bloody Week. Thousands were executed and huge parts of the city burned again.
But if Paris has one single defining characteristic, it has to be resilience. Because from the ashes of the Commune rose one of its most glorious eras ever, a period of just breathtaking creativity and innovation.
We call it La Belle Époque, the beautiful era. And for those few decades, Paris was, without a doubt, the center of the Western world. It was a magnet for anyone with a new idea, a new artistic style, or a totally new way of seeing things.
And the stuff that came out of this period is just legendary. You have the Impressionists completely changing art forever. The Moulin Rouge opens its doors. The Eiffel Tower goes up for the 1889 World's Fair. And by the way, Parisians absolutely hated it at first. They thought it was a metal monstrosity. The metro starts running underground, and fashion houses like Chanel begin telling the entire world what to wear. But of course, the fury was bound to return. The 20th century brought 2 world wars, which included 4 long, brutal years of Nazi occupation.
It brought the massive student and worker protests of May 1968, which brought the entire city to a standstill and nearly toppled the government.
And in more recent memory, it's brought the trauma of coordinated terror attacks
And the absolute heartbreak of watching Notre-Dame, the very soul of the city, go up in flames.
And yet, through all of that, from a tiny Celtic fishing village to a grand imperial capital to a modern metropolis, this city endures. It always rebuilds. It always reinvents itself. The story of Paris is really never over. So it leaves us with a big question. After 2,000 years of firelight and fury, what comes next?